Here is a typical cat. I've seen many of these in the Shire and elsewhere. Nah, maybe I better not say elsewhere. This is a cat from elsewhere. Bigger, walks on 2 feet, talks, and apparently owns inns. This is a strange place I'm visiting these days. Oh, yes, of course. Like everybody else, they give out quests. Hurricane Assistance and Salvage. To all citizens of Canarthy's Roost, the Dominion's gold fleet has suffered extreme losses due to the recent hurricane. In this time of need, please do what you're able to aid the survivors. 1. Hosting Dominion soldiers. If you or anyone you know are capable of hosting guests, consider opening your doors to the Dominion soldiers in need of shelter. 2. Rescue and recovery. If you encounter shipwrecked survivors capable of moving on their own, direct them to the Temple of the Morning Springs. If trapped beneath the wreckage or suffering from grievous wounds, alert any Dominion officers to assist. 3. Salvage Prohibition. Stripping fallen Dominion soldiers of armor or weaponry will be considered a hostile act. Report any such activity to Dominion officers. Your cooperation is appreciated in this trying time. Alright, I suppose that is expected. Though I suspect that knowing these
as part of the Dominion,
current politics, that there's probably expecting that some people won't be complying with that. What have we got here?
Your chance for untold prosperity comes with Dominion rule.
Oh yes. Now remember. I need to go into the Chancery and find out what's going on here.
My own father, divine save his soul, was torn to pieces.
Probably have a few notes here. Maybe I can actually learn something from these, like
Greetings.
something about this land. Are you the Sylvanar?
Your pardon, friend. The Dominion's arrival on Canarthy's Roost has upset the locals. It falls on me to smooth the waters. Please, help yourself to food or drink. I'm happy to speak with you once this matter is settled.
Alright, I received this from Rosendar.
Most unexpected. It seems we have a mutual friend. May I ask, what brings you to Mistral?
Our mutual friend thought that you could use my help.
Then perhaps you can advise me on a small matter. The Maormer have a treaty with Canarthy's Roost. This is nothing to fear. A treaty is something I can work with. Yet neither Ambassador Ulondil nor Headwoman Harani will produce a copy.
And why not? Isn't a treaty public knowledge?
Indeed, why not? It would be indecorous to suggest the treaty is anything but actual and sound, yet I fear it won't present itself without a more active line of inquiry. Would you be my voice in this with Ambassador Ulondil and Headwoman Harani?
And you want me to ask them for a copy of the treaty?
Exactly. A chorus of requests may succeed in carrying the tune. Harani in particular seems eager to see this resolved, though I fear the Dominion presence binds her hands. But I'll leave you to it.
All right. Better see if I can understand. Increased bandit activity. Headwoman Harani. While this is understands the guard is While this one understands the guard is needed to help Mistral recover from the storm, cessation of regular patrols has led to increased bandit activity along the roads. One can hardly step away from one's stall without being accosted by ruffians. It is not bandits, it is harpies driven inland by heavy winds. Oh, harpies? If not harpies, scavengers mistaking our wares for flotsam washed up from the shore. Corpusar has contracted with a pair of mercenaries to help deal with these dangers, but not all of my kin are able to do so. When we expect patrols to resume, patiently awaiting your response. Corpusar Merchant. This one thinks the merchant is going to have time to wait before this game gets resolved. Alright, let's see what we've got here. Rats in the crops. Headwoman Harani. Some of our homes are damaged by the storm, and a great many of rats have set upon our crops. While we have rats in hand, we may inquire as to where we might expect help. None of the Windcatcher plantation are skilled architects. While a few of us can make simple repairs, we cannot fix everything without help from Mistral. We will do what we can while we wait your word. Ever your servant, Silat. Alright, this hurricane is creating quite a bit of problem, I can see. A good day.
It's hard to keep track of the new faces since the hurricane, but I don't believe we've met. Welcome to Mistral. May your stay here be full of warm winds and soft sand.
Well, yes, may they be full of... I could appreciate some warm winds after some of the places I've been. I presume you've never been to Forkel, right? Lucky you, they don't have warm winds or soft sands. The Sylvanar wants to see a copy of your treaty. Do you think you can bring it up?
And I told him. The mere act of doing so would complicate matters with our longtime Maormer allies. They take great offense to the Dominion's claims upon our island.
Oh, then why did you sign a treaty with the Maormer?
Look around you. What great armies do you see? Our survival depends on knowing when to fight and when to please. The treaty brought us prosperity for generations. I will not be the one to break it.
All right. Apparently it's an oral treaty. That is what I am going to... Never heard of an oral treaty, though, of course. In the Shire, we don't exactly go around making major treaties all over the place. Well, at least none that I remember.
We upheld our treaty with the people of Canathi's Roost for generations. And this is how they repay our kindness? We will not allow High Elf thieves to gain a foothold in our territorial waters.
You're saying that the Maormer claim Canathi's Roost?
By all rights, this is our island. Harani's people occupy it with our blessing. If she breaks the treaty, so breaks our truce. We'll take back our island, and the Khajiit will pay the price.
And where is this treaty exactly?
We keep a copy on an island far from here. I see no reason to send for it. I won't allow High Elf wharf-rats another chance to take our rightful lands. Why don't you bother Harani for her copy?
Alright. So in other words... I guess I have to see if I can find it. What's going on in here? Hello.
This one thinks you have come to make a deposit, yes?
Oh. Banker. I guess some things never change. At least that's the first familiar thing. Well, except that this one's a cat.
Any luck securing a copy of the treaty?
Well, apparently they both refused to provide a copy.
Then there's little chance for compromise. I'll call a break in formal talks until everyone calms their nerves. You understand the stakes, yes? It's why I ask you to take a more active role in locating the treaty. I don't do so lightly.
Well, what do you mean?
I can't allow the Dominion's first act on Canarthy's roost to be one of conquest. I understand our mutual friend prefers the rum served at a nearby tavern. Perhaps he would have ideas on securing a copy of the treaty.
And by the way, is the Sylvanar your real name?
It's a name, a title, and our holy city. Quite an honor to carry around such an important word, and the occasional burden in its confusion of outsiders. Not even the Green Lady calls me by my given name. Edelorn doesn't roll off the tongue, I suppose.
Yeah, I can understand. And how long have you been the Sylvanar?
As Sylvanar? Seems like it's been such a short while, but the wrinkles on my face tell me differently. Or did you mean as Dominion Envoy? I've taken on diplomatic tasks for our fledgling alliance since its inception, so not very long at all.
And what is your opinion of the Aldmeri Dominion?
A freshly grown fruit, still without blemish. On behalf of the Bosmer people, it's my goal to keep it that way. If you speak with the Green Lady, don't mistake her manner as distaste for the Dominion. She simply misses our home of Valenwood.
And who is the Green Lady?
She sustains me, and I her. Together, we are the aspirations of the Bosmer people given form. Put simply, she is the love of my life. Also, she grows ill-humoured when I gush about her within earshot. I'd best say no more.
Alright, thank you. Well... okay, the Green Lady. Another broadsheet. Oh, that's the one I read. Another copy of what I read before. Alright. Yes. I wonder, anything interesting upstairs? Hoping to learn something about this land. And nothing interesting in those books. Who knows? Maybe I'll run into a copy of the treaty. Yeah, right. Nah. No night reading here? Well. If there's a treaty in here. Ooh. Well, taking a recipe would be so tempting. Oh, a balcony. Not much of a view, I have to say. Not much of... I know, would you build a balcony? Would give you a view like that? This one doesn't understand this area. Alright. Let us go down here. Hey. Is there a treaty in here? Racial motifs. The Red Guard. Alright. I'll leave the gem there. I won't disturb the Green Lady right now. Now, the Red Guard. Now, who exactly are these Red Guard? Oh,
I could use a
guess
break.
I need to... Alright. Racial Motifs 6. The Red Guard. Being notes of the Dr. Alethea Lupus on the series of pamphlets of the major cultural styles of Tamriel. Dr. Lupus was imperial ethnographer of Palatinate Sabrine Korak from 2E Second Age 418 to 431. Alright. When I arrived in Morian's townhouse this morning, all was sunshine and rainbows. Dariet and the professor were chatting over mugs of chow like their best friends, comparing Rablet's elven ritual form to the Book of Most Arcane Covenants. I remained Dariet as he's promised to escort me to the Yokadal Chapel of the Market District, at which Morian's brow clouded over slightly. But then he smiled and said that was fine. He wanted to test some new hyperungal media in his laboratory. And maybe it was the light, but to me both men looked younger somehow. I must keep in mind that they're both highly capable wizards, which I suppose might include knowledge of illusion magic. Or perhaps I flatter myself. I met a number of knowledgeable Red Guards at the chapel, all exhibiting that dignity and polite reserve I associate with the better educated members of that people. The most Reverend Zirmir, the priest of Tuhuaca, I suppose I spelled that right. Well, you don't know if you spelled it right, I don't know if I pronounced it right, was particularly helpful. As Zirmir pointed out, both the Red Guard's ancient home of Yokuda and their current province of Hammerfell are, or were in the case of Yokuda, deserts. To stay cool and for protection from the elements, Red Guard clothing tended to be light, long, and flowing. And these flowing curves are carried into their artisanal designs. Their robes and armor are more often accented by flared curves and joints and on headgear. Even their swords tend to be curved. In contrast, their architecture seems to be rather heavy, though on close inspection that is mainly for the purpose of insulation from the desert's extreme temperature. Zirmir shows me the chapel's clever system of levered ventilation ducts in the cloistery, designed to catch the slightest breeze and funnel it down into the nave. After Zirmir were called away to tend to his congregation, Dermot and I strolled into the apse to view the 8 shrines of the Yokudan divines. Dariat was explaining that whereas the forebearers of Hammersfell often worshipped the Cyrodiilic divines brought to them by the Roman Empire, these were the traditional gods worshipped by the more conservative Crowan Red Guards. Suddenly, behind the beehive shrines of Mora, there turned to me those blazing eyes. Looked 2 hands behind his, and told me that he thought me the most brilliant and desirable woman in the imperial city. My breath caught in my throat, and my heart was hammering. But when he moved in to embrace me, I was suddenly frightened. I backed away, shaking my head, and fled into the nave. I fear I quite startled the young family of the Red Guards placing candles in Moira's altar. Now what? I'm afraid I must have insulted Dietz terribly. How can I make it up to him? And dare I mention it to Morian? Julius's little teapot. What a dilemma. Alright, I certainly don't understand that too much. Okay, with the Red Guards. But wait a minute. they're talking about Morwa and right and divines and all this. Something else I don't quite understand. Alright. Yeah. That was interesting. But now, what do I need to do? Oh, yeah. Speak with Ramru Dars. Maybe I'll take the stairs. Not that hobbits particularly like stairs, but jumping off of places isn't desirable either. Ah, here we go. Basic Provisioning Guide. Basic Provisioning Guide by Cloius Mogestin, Supply Sergeant of the 7th Legion. In my 20 years as Supply Captain of the 7th Imperial, I learned one absolute truth. Provisioning is the same whether feeding yourself or an entire army. Per Magus General Septimathal's request, I will share that I know of the provisions of less accomplished legions. Step 1. Acquire ingredients. Yes, I would have to agree with that. I've done a little cooking myself. When you are in the field, the backpacks is the only pantry upon which your soldiers can rely. Requisition anything you could find. Even every barrel, chest, and sack of grain should take its contribution to your cause. As the Imperial soldier, you have a right to requisition as much as you want, but use discretion. A citizen with an empty larder will have long memories of Imperial imposition. A single handful scooped or item from every barrel or chest or sack is my simple rule. 2. Acquire recipes. Never forget that you are a provisioner, not a chef. You aren't cooking personal meals for the Duchess of Shedmil. It doesn't matter how the food tastes as long as it feeds your cohort. You want recipes that are fast, simple, and best made in bulk. Take grilled capons, a meal that requires capon meat and drippings. It doesn't matter that your knowledge for ingredients is required. The ingredients required without a proper recipe, they're just raw meat and grease. Locals always have their own ways to prepare local ingredients to stay vigilant for recipes while requisitioning supplies. 3. Cook, cook, cook. Once you've learned a recipe, bring those ingredients to a cooking fire and cook them. And don't burn the food. Remember to serve your cohorts what it needs most. Scouts and skirmishers need roast goat. Well, I'm a skirmisher. Well, mages make their cohort our best fed capon noodle soup. Infantry can always use trotter pie. Never forget that a hot meal can make the difference between life and death. Skirmishers roast goat. Sounds more like something for a dwarf, right? Well, no, actually, they won't eat their goats. They ride their goats. Never mind. Addendum. Brewing on the go. I hear enough questions about brewing to warrant this own section. I recommend that you never keep more than a flask of fine brew with you. Your cohort will know it's a prize for those who truly distinguish themselves. Yet sometimes the cohort needs liquid courage, such as before a battle or a parade review. This is when I brew horrible swill from local recipes, both to shock the soldiers into a state of confident readiness and to keep them from growing fond of the stuff. Step 1 and 2 are identical to the similar steps for cooking. As for the third, brew, brew, brew. Ah, surprise, surprise, surprise. Once you learn the recipe, bring those ingredients to a cooking fire. Then brew them. Don't spoil the drink. I often present excess brew to the locals who donated the ingredients in the first place. This is not Imperial requisition policy, but it helps my cohort to stay in their future good graces, whether we suffer a retreat due to actions of less stalwart legions.
Do not worry. It is safely gauged.
Right.
You think this one drinks on the job? Good. Then so will everyone else. What is the word, my new friend?
The Sylvanar needs to see the treaty, but no one will provide a copy.
Ulandil certainly won't. His viper tongue is sharp. But Harani can't because her copy was stolen. It only takes 3 drinks to loosen the tongue of the Chancery clerk, if you were curious.
And who stole Harari's copy of the treaty?
A good question. Raz answers it with an interesting bit of trivia. Ulandil posted a guard at his quarters the day of the theft. His subtlety is rivaled only by his pleasant personality. Oh, and it's 5 drinks for embassy staff. 6 puts them out.
5 drinks for the embassy staff, 6 to put them out. And are you certain that Ulandil stole the treaty?
Someone needs to slip into Marmor Embassy, find a way past the guard, and rifle through Ulandil's private quarters. Oh, and do it without bloodshed that could provoke war with the Marmor. In case he was not clear, Raz is talking about you.
Oh, yes. And why me?
The pragmatist in this one says it's because you have no firm connection to the Dominion. The optimist says it's because you have proven yourself more than capable already. When you have the treaty, meet both of us at the bridge.
Right.
Hail.
Alright, let's see, what is this? Oh, a cooking fire. Well, let's see, what recipes do I know? Apparently none. Alright, I can make dark meat beer, aged meat, and brown malt. Alright, I suppose I can make a little bit of that. So if I do this, I could get some beer. Alright, let's see. I don't have anything for that. Maybe I should have taken that recipe after all.
It is safely caged.
But at least a little beer.
Tahara will not tear the flesh from your bones.
Now let us see what I can do about sneaking to the Marmor Embassy's private quarters.
Marvel at its slavering maw.
Hello there.
Be disgusted
Hello.
by its cold, oozing nose. For prosperity, for security,
Now what does it say on the map?
for the Dominion.
Now how I'm going to sneak into there?
The Dominion
5
welcomes
drinks.
all who
Well,
wish to join.
if I need 5 drinks to do this, let's see, I got some beer, some malt.
Kenarthi's roost and the Dominion. Together, we'll achieve unity.
Something that makes Redguard armor. I'm probably going to need a few more recipes. I hope I don't have to buy 5 drinks, assuming he was hinting that I'm going to have to do that in order to get into there. Well, let's see if I can sneak in without putting them to sleep. Actually, I need to get them to sleep or talking or what. La 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 la.
Don't cause trouble.
Ooh, interesting. First things first. Any interesting documents in around here? Ooh, fishes. Somehow I don't think I'm going to sneak in very well if I take their fishes. I don't need a cordon, that's for sure. Oh, what's in here? Sorcery is not necromancy, by David Fear. A mage of supreme power and irradiation must, such as myself, be called upon to exercise his skills in almost any corner of far-flung Tamriel. So for the native of Morrowind, I am widely traveled. Thus, I can tell you with the authority of a personal experience that petty local officials, regardless of race or culture, are universally suspicious of ill-informed. A sorcerer, eh? They would say. Well, we'll have none of your raising the dead in this jurisdiction. Is that understood? I cannot tell you how many times I've been subjected to the variations of the above conversation. These ignorant and self-important functionaries have no conception whatsoever of the distinction between arcane arts. As far as they are concerned, every manipulator of magic is just waiting for midnight before skulking off to the cemetery to animate corpses of their neighbors and ancestors. Imbeciles, fools, bureaucrats. Now, it is true, of course, that conjuration is a common tool of sorcery, and we sorcerers often resort to summoning aid from oblivion when a problem is best solved by judicious application of various brute force. It is also true that summoning Daedric spirits to possess and animate corpses, or calling on the souls of the dead for information or their services, in short, necromancy, is a subset of the art of conjuration, albeit inherently distasteful and degrading. However, to infer from this that all sorcerers are de facto necromancers is false, misleading, and libelous. That said, everyone was young once, and it's typical of youth to experiment with things that are dangerous and forbidden. It is long since I was a lad in Tel Arum, and my memory of the first era is inexact, but it's just possible that as an apprentice I may have tried out an animation spell or two. Never on corpses of anyone I knew, of course, or at least no one I knew well, and never for long to my recollection. So at any rate, I know whereof I speak, that I can tell you that sorcery and necromancy, there is a difference. Okay. The Ruins of Zemmelzee, Part 1. With the acclamations of the Fellows of the Imperial Society still ringing in my ears, I decided to return to Morrowind immediately. It was not without some regret that I bade farewell to the flesh-pots of the Imperial City, but I knew the wonders I had brought back from Raled Mackay had once scratched the surfaces of the Dwemer ruins of Morrowind. Even more spectacular treasures were out there. I felt just waiting to be found, and I was eager to be off. I also had before me the solitary example of poor Bannerman, who was still dining out on single expedition to Black Marsh 20 years ago. That would never be me, I vowed. With my letter from the Empress in hand, this time I would have the full cooperation of the imperial authorities. No more need to worry about attacks from superstitious locals. But where should I look next? The ruins of Kemelze were the obvious choice. Unlike Raled Mackay, getting into the ruins would not be a problem. Also known as the Cliff City, Kemelze lies on the mainland side of the Vardafelt Rift, spawning down the sheer coastal cliff. Travelers from the east coast of Vranvel often visit the site by boat, and it can also be reached overland from the nearby villages without undue hardship. Once my expedition has assembled inside a scene, from the usual tedious complications involved in the operating of the half-civilized land, we set out to the village of Marog, near the ruins, where we hope to hire a party of diggers. My interpreter, Tuin Panay, an unusually jolly fellow for a dark elf, whom I hired as Senya Dean at the recommendation of the local garrison commander, assured me that the local villagers would be very familiar with Kemelze, having looted the site for generations. Well, that means there won't be much left in it. Incidentally, Tenpenny, as we soon came to call him to his constant amusement, proved to be invaluable, as I would recommend... They called him Tenpenny. Okay. Would recommend him without hesitation to any of the colleagues who were planning similar expeditions to the wilds of Morrowind. At Marog, we ran into our first trouble. The hetman of the village, a reserved, elegant old fellow, seemed willing to cooperate, but the local priest, a representative of the absurd religion they have here, worshipping something called a tribunal, who they claim actually lives in palaces in Morrowind, were fervently against the excavation of the ruins. I hope that's not related to the tribunal that was headed by the old woman of the mountain, Hopefully it's a completely different one. Well, seeing that this is male, I guess so. He looked likely to sway the villagers to his side with his talk of the religious taboos. But I waved the Empress's letter under his nose and mentioned something about my friend the garrison commander as Sedyed Neen, and he quieted right down. No doubt this was just a standard negotiating tactic arranged among the villagers to increase their pay. In any event, once the priest had stalked off muttering to himself, no doubt calling down curses upon the heads of the foreign devils, we soon had a line of villagers eager to sign on to the expedition. While my assistant was looking out for the mundane details of contracts, supplies, etc., Master Ozam and I rode on to the ruins. By land, they can only be reached upon the narrow paths of the wind that wind down the face of the cliff from above, where any misstep threatens to send one tumbling into the sea, foaming about the jagged rocks below. The city's original entrance to the surface must have been part of the city of the northeast, the part that fell into the sea long ago after the eruption of Red Mountain created a mind-boggling vast crater. So they have volcanoes around here, and not just the Mount Doom like we have back home. Not that Mount Doom is back home. After successfully navigating the treacherous path, we found ourselves at a large chamber, open to the sky in the side, disappearing into the darkness on the other. As we stepped forward, our boots crunched onto the pile of broken metal, as common in dwarven ruins as potsherds shards in other ancient sites. This was obviously where the looters brought their finds to the deeper levels, stripping off the valuable outer casings of the dwarven mechanisms and leaving the innards here. Either lugging the intact mechanisms back to the easier than lugging the intact mechanisms back to the top of the cliff. I laughed to myself, thinking of the many warriors unwittingly walking around Tamriel with pieces of dwarven mechanisms on their backs. For that, of course, is what most dwarven armor really is. Just the armored shells of ancient mechanical men. I sobered the thought, and as I thought of how exceedingly valuable an intact mechanism would be. This place was obviously full of dwarven devices, judging from the littered covering of the floors and vast chamber. Or had been, I reminded myself. Looters had been working over this site for centuries. Just the casing alone would be worth a small fortune, such as armor. Most dwarven armor is made from mismatched pieces from various devices, hence the reputation for being bulky and unwieldy. But a matched set from an intact mechanism is worth more than a weight in gold, for the pieces all fit together smoothly as the wearer hardly notices the bulk. What? Well, if it's made of mithril, no wonder. Wow. But looks like there aren't many dwarves around these days. Of course, I had no intention of destroying my finds for armor, no matter how valuable. I would bring it back to society for scientific study. I imagined astonished cries of my Kylies as I unveiled at my next lecture, and smiled again. Right. Well, what's a recipe or two? Alright, here's a guard. Now what do I need to do?
Are you lost? Ambassador Ulandil's quarters aren't open for visitors.
Oh, and what are you guarding?
None of your business. Go bother the clerk. He doesn't know when to shut up either.
Oh. Oh well. Oh, what's this? My dearest beautiful Zali, I saw by your water again. The sun made your silver fur line up like a bright sky. I would have stood there forever, but I stand lost guarding the embassy, so I left. You should visit the embassy to see how important I am. We can eat dinner together. You know who. Right. Okay. Well. Let's see. Any books here? Well, let's see. Not much here. Fine. Okay. Let's see. How do we handle this? Better take out the guard and the clerk.
Ambassador Ulandil isn't here. And if he was, he'd be far too busy to entertain the likes of you.
Oh, and why does he need a guard upstairs?
That's what I've been wondering. He spices his rum with moon sugar, you know. I'm sure one of the servants brings it to him. If I catch him sleeping at his post again, I'll inform the ambassador.
Oh, right. Yes, thank you. Whatever moon sugar is. Cooking fire. Well, let's see. Oh, that's right. I need to learn the recipe first. Yeah, read the recipe. Then maybe I could actually do something with it. beer, spirits, rot meth. Well, alright. Well, that may be interesting. What's in here? Oh, that. Hello there.
Floors that don't sway, sand that creeps into boots, bugs the size of anchors. May the gods see me posted to a proper ship.
Alright. Yeah, I do understand about the bugs the size of anchors. And do you know why there's a guard upstairs?
So, he's actually doing his job? Most of the time he's writing love letters to some pretty face in town. Zadi or Zami or something. He's a fool in a crow's nest, searching the horizon for any sign of her love.
Oh, yeah. Well. Yeah, let's get something in here. Well, let's see. Let us see if I can write something for him. Yeah. Maybe he'd be willing to go out to a secret rendezvous. Hello. I have a message for you.
Are you lost? Ambassador Ulandil's quarters aren't open for visitors.
Yeah, this letter arrived for you.
What? Give it here. She wants to meet me? Now? Out of my way.
Alright. I think I have little time here. Treaty of Kenarth's Roost. Treaty of Kenarth's Roost. Whereas the citizens and leadership of the sovereign island of the Kenarth's Roost recognize the capability of Mariner Enforcement Squadron for acute destruction on the west and wish to establish a peaceful and financially advantageous accord. Whereas both parties acknowledge that the creation of terms for a mutually beneficial treaty is desirable and necessary, and that the terms agreed to and set forth in the articles of this treaty. Article 1. An embassy shall be prominently established in the port city of Mistral to accommodate the Marmor ambassador and associated retinue. Costs shall be afforded by the people of Kenarth's Roost, who agree to supply a personal staff of no less than 15 servants, finely woven tapestries depicting the generous and wise Marmor people, personalized and embroidered cotton bedding, and a stock of local and imported liquors. Of course. Article 2. All individuals and organizations wishing to engage in commerce via the port city of Mistral must henceforth be registered and obtain official rights of passage. Registration fees are to be determined by the ambassador of a ship-by-ship basis. Those who refuse such fees would be treated as enemy agents and are subject to confiscation and materials imprisoned under the auspices of Mariner law. Mariner leadership reserves the right to inspect any vessel in the port and surrounding waters for any reason. This is a treaty? A mutually beneficial treaty? This looks like something imposed by the gun. Well, okay, sorry about that. With a crossbow. Article 3. Marmor Enforcement Squadrons shall not perpetrate unprovoked attacks of aggression towards the merchant ships or in or around the port city of Mistral, and likewise shall not interfere with approved trade affairs. Any current prisoners and 2 signatories shall be released immediately. upon the signing of this treaty. Said squadron shall act as self-defense and under reasonable suspicious activities of enemy agents. As recognized for Mariner non-interference, 15% of all registry fees of excises shall be rendered upon the embassy on the 15th of each. This is a protection treaty. Blackmail. Article 4. A joint holiday shall be established to commemorate the signing of today's date. Such holiday shall be afforded at the expense of the people of Mistral to demonstrate the peace between the two parties and adherence to the treaty. This celebration shall be named Serpent's Glory, and on this day, Marmor dignitaries and selected mayor, men, and others of note shall be invited to the island to Canarthy's Roost for feasting, music, and revelry in the party's common success and accord. Mayor, men, and others. Okay? Whatever that means. Article 4. Addendum 1. Attendance to the general festivities during the Serpent's Glory is permitted to residents of the port city of Mistral, though feast participation shall be limited to Marmor invitees, the mayor of Kennereth's Roost, and no more than 3 guests selected by the mayor and approved by the ambassador. Foodstuffs shall be prepared by Mariner chefs, music performed by Mariner minstrels, and under no circumstances shall the repugnant dish sugared cuttlefish be served. Article 5. The ambassador and the people of Canarthy's agree to review the terms, negotiate any necessary addenda, and reaffirm their mutual commitment to the lasting and profitable peace of a decennial basis. Alright, so alright. Is this the same broadsheet we had before? Yeah. Oh, Wardens of the Green. Wardens? Maybe this will tell me where I can get a spear. The hunters wait in the boughs, clad only in leaves and shadows. She breathes as the wind shifts and listens. Her quarry's fear grows thicker than the canopy. A glance, a turn, and it breaks cover. Her eyes open. Footsteps muffled, and owl's wings beat softly through the green. And others will lose the quarry of the vine-swept earth, yet the hunter does not waver. Over and through the forest goes the silent chase. Briefly the hunter alights into the branch, and quickly pulls her waterskins, as she is off once more. This is more like a hunter than a warden. The streams bubbles through the woods as the quarry stops to drink. Claws cleave scabbard, slick and shining, teeth bare with anticipation. She leaps. A scirocco of splashes, claw meets neck. The quarry relents. A moment more will see the crimson interlude upon the stream's mirth. She licks her lips. Not this one. At the stream's edge stands a simple mare. In his silhouette stands every woodsman, hunter, and guide, every jackspur, every tree thane and spinner, every child and every elder stands with him, yet he stands alone. Her hunter's gaze meets his. She sees herself beside him too. She blushes, and so does he. "My Sylvanar," she says at last. "My green lady," he responds in turn. She lowers her claw and turns to the quarry. In stalking these woods, in keeping them free of terrors, I lose myself to the green. She helps the quarry to his feet. "But I will always bring her back," says the Sylvanar. "You have nothing to fear from us. Child of the forest, so long as there in the green, we walk where you walk." The Sylvanar vanishes among vines. The green lady leaps for the boughs. She watches the Bosmer trudge out into the stream and continue through the forest. But she smiles, for the Bosmer is no longer afraid. Well, I didn't quite understand that one either. Well, I can only take so many moonstones from this place. Alright, where were we? Well, I think it's better get out of here before this guy returns. Did I read this one already? Oh, yes, of course. Now, let's get down here and return this treaty.
Watch your step, Brown Walker.
Right, okay. Now, let's bring that treaty back and see what's going to happen as a result. But it sounds like to me then that they don't want, one doesn't want the treaty to be known because it's done by blackmail, and the other one doesn't know because they're afraid of being blamed if it becomes known. Oh, here you are. This one has found the treaty.
The spring in your step. Did you know a sense of accomplishment can alter one's stride? You'll learn to notice it in others.
Oh, right. And here's the treaty.
The Sylvanar is certainly being watched by the Maumar. You should inform him the treaty is safe. He will know what to do next.
Okay, I'll go and tell him.
The Sylvanar and the Green Lady are being put up in the armorer's home. This one recommends you knock before entering. Green Lady gets jumpy at silent approach.
And do you think the treaty will help in any way?
At a quick glance, there are holes in the treaty. When the Sylvanar worries at them, he'll tear a hole in the Maumar side. The treaty, of course. Not Ambassador Ulandil, though that would be funny.
Yeah. Oh, tear a hole in the treaty.
You look all right, I suppose.
Alright, now let us find this Sylvanar. Oh. It's this way, somewhere near the armor.
Greetings.
Alright. Guess it's up this way. Is it this way? Now, where can this be? Oh, upstairs.
Thirsty blade, and it's overdue for a drink.
That's not good. Brimstone.
Time for you to leave.
That's not.
No! No!
What happened?
You found him like this? What did you see? Answer me!
He was dead when I arrived.
Then you know nothing. 1,000 curses on this wretched island. They've taken my beloved.
Who would want him dead?
None who'll survive the day. I am the unerring bolt. Once loosed, I cannot stop till I pierce my quarry's eye. Harani knows her own city.
If she won't tell you who did this, I'll shorten her tail until she does. Now go! Go!
Very well. And with that, we'll end today's episode. And see you next time for our next episode of Pineleaf Plays. No, Pineleaf in Tamriel.